I never imagined wedding day would turn into my worst nightmare. My sister stole my fiancé 10 years ago. She always had everything: charming smile, the golden laugh, the family's favorite. I was the quieter one, patiently waiting for my turn. And then it happened. The night I thought we were inseparable. He told me we had a future, that I was the one he loved. But overnight, everything changed. My sister texted me, "Don't come to the wedding." The dress was ready, the invitation sent. But she marched down the aisle instead, with him. Imagine watching from the shadows as she walked past you, that sly smirk on her face. She didn't just take him, she took my dream, my dignity. So I did something nobody expected. I accepted her invitation. And tonight, you'll hear what happened at the reception, how I didn't just stand there, I turned the tables. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's a story of revenge. Stay tuned, because what happened next shocked them all. My name is Emma, and for 10 years I believed I'd moved past the heartbreak. Moving cities, starting a new job, finding new friends, it all helped. But every time I thought I'd healed, I remembered her face in the aisle, his arm around her waist, that triumphant look on their faces. Left me hollow. For the past year, whispers in town have kept me on edge. The engagement party they threw a month ago? I saw her laughing at something he said, and I felt that same old ache pain like a fresh wound. Something had to change. So I began to plan. No impulsive digs or spiteful outbursts, it needed to be precise. Like a slow-burning fuse, I reached out to her fiancé's business partner, offered to help with an old debt he had. I volunteered to help coordinate the wedding. Why? To get close enough to uncover every secret they buried. I gathered guest lists, spoke to old friends, quietly listened. I learned things. Big things. Every email compiled, every phone call recorded, every hotel receipt saved. It built a picture. I found out about his off-the-record meetings with my sister's best friend. I found receipts for late-night dinners with a private lawyer. I discovered a dormant safety deposit box in Las Vegas, left under their names. Then, 2 weeks ago, I told my fiancé, no, my ex, about the surprise I had for the reception. They expected a speech, a toast. What they got was a slideshow. 50 photographs. Hotel invoices. Bank statements. A private investigator's report. With every image that appeared on screen, their color drained. The room fell silent except for my voice. Surprised to see your lawyer in Kansas City at midnight, Dave? Or your business lunch in the Hamptons, Mary? My words echoed. I clicked to the next slide, hard evidence that they weren't just hiding things, they were plotting. He stumbled through excuses. She gaped, a deer caught in headlights. The guests looked between them and me, horrified. I saw his sweating palm. I saw her trembling lip. I let it play out. I paused and waited for the reaction. Then I dropped the final bomb. Everything you thought you hid, your trust fund withdrawal, your secret prenuptial, that flight to Aruba you billed as work retreat, it's all out. They fell apart as the audience gasped. I walked off after that, left them at the podium. Let them face the fallout. Tonight, I'll tell you exactly how I orchestrated every step. How I didn't just strike, I dismantled. How it felt when he stood before the crowd, humiliated, and how everyone looked like they'd lost faith in their perfect love story. And I'll show you the ending no one saw coming, what happened when Mary ran from the stage, leaving him to swallow their lies, and what she revealed later, alone, in tears, in the empty hall at midnight. Brace yourself. This isn't just revenge. It's the unraveling of their illusion. And I'm only just getting started. After I walked off the stage, I didn't look back. But I could hear the silence. That kind of silence that hums. The kind that clings to your skin. The kind you only get after something explodes and there's dust floating in the air and people are just staring, processing. I stepped into the hallway outside the banquet hall and exhaled for the first time in what felt like days, months, years. You'd think I felt powerful, victorious, but I didn't, not in that moment. I felt free. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't the girl left behind. I wasn't the forgotten sister or the one with the broken engagement. I was the storm they didn't see coming, and it was finally quiet inside my head. About 10 minutes passed. Then I heard the door. He followed me out first. "Emma," he said. My name fell from his mouth like a bruise. I turned slowly, looked him in the eyes. "What could you possibly say to me right now?" I asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. He was sweating, his tie hanging like a noose around his neck. "It's not what it looked like." "Oh, you're going with that?" I laughed once. Cold, sharp. Because what it looked like was very well documented. HD images, time-stamped receipts. "I even used your printer, Dave." His shoulders sagged. "I was scared," he said. "I didn't know how to tell you." Everything happened so fast back then. I stepped closer. "You didn't just leave me for my sister. You lied. You both lied. Then you built a marriage on it, paraded it around, and invited me to watch you celebrate it, like I should be grateful. Like I should smile and clap. I was young." He tried again. "So was I. But I didn't destroy anyone." He looked away. The door opened again. And this time, it was her. Mary. Her makeup had smudged. Her hair, so perfectly curled earlier, was now falling around her shoulders like a curtain trying to hide her shame. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me. I waited. Finally, she broke. "You've hated me all this time." "Yes," I said. "And you deserved it." She winced. "You don't understand," he told me. "You cheated. That you were seeing someone else. That you were emotionally unstable." I believed him. I blinked. Slowly. "And you didn't think to ask me?" "Your sister." I was angry. "I always thought you got more love from Mom. From Dad. I thought this was finally something that was mine." "You're telling me you stole my fiancé out of sibling jealousy?" She nodded, tears brimming. I was stupid. And when I realized what he did, I was already in too deep. "You stayed with him for 10 years. She nodded again. I didn't want to lose. I thought if I made the marriage work, I could justify how it started. And that was it, wasn't it? It wasn't about love. It was never about love. It was about winning. But she didn't win. Because love can't survive that kind of rot. You can decorate it, hide it under silk and flowers and grand ceremonies, but eventually, the truth bleeds through. I stared at them both, my ex-fiancé and my sister. My betrayers. My ghosts. And I said one thing. "You two deserve each other." I walked past them, down the corridor, and out into the night. But that wasn't the end. Because what I didn't know was that someone else had been watching that night. Someone who heard everything. Someone with more secrets than even I had uncovered. And they were about to come forward. What happened next would take everything I thought I knew and turn it inside out. I didn't go home that night. I drove. No destination, no map, just headlights slicing through the dark while my phone buzzed with unread messages. Some were from guests, people I hadn't spoken to in years, offering shocked sympathy or backhanded praise. "You really made a scene. You had us all stunned. I had no idea what they did to you." But one message stood out. It wasn't a name I recognized. No profile picture. Just a gray silhouette and a short message. "You don't know the half of it." At first, I ignored it. Thought it was a troll, someone trying to feed off the drama. But as I slowed to a stoplight, I noticed the message wasn't alone. There were attachments. Photos. 3 of them. One was Dave, my ex-fiancé, sitting in a bar, talking to someone I didn't recognize. The second was Mary, my sister, handing over a manila envelope to what looked like a real estate agent. The third? The third photo made my blood run cold. It was me, taken 2 nights ago, from across the street. I was leaving my apartment building, holding my dry cleaning. Someone had been watching me. I pulled into the first gas station I saw and parked in the far corner. My hands were shaking as I opened the message thread again. I typed back, "Who are you?" No reply. Not at first. Then 3 dots. And finally, "I can explain everything. Meet me tomorrow. 4 p.m. 39th and Weller." I stared at the message for a long time. Logic told me to block the number. This could be dangerous. I'd already kicked the hornet's nest. Who knew what else I'd stirred up? But something deeper, something colder in me had already made the decision. I was going. The next day felt like a fog. I barely slept. I replayed everything in my mind. My speech, the slideshow, the look in Mary's eyes when she realized the mask had cracked. But mostly, I kept thinking about that third photo. Who took it? Why? At 3:45, I pulled up to the address. It was an old coffee shop, half abandoned, boarded windows, but the front door was propped open and the open sign flickered weakly in the window. I stepped inside. At first, I didn't see anyone. The place was empty, save for one man sitting in the corner booth. He looked up when I entered. Mid-40s, weathered face, dark hoodie. He didn't wave. Just waited. I sat across from him. "You're Emma," he said. I didn't answer. He slid something across the table. "A flash drive." "I used to work for Dave," he said. "Marketing consultant." Then I started noticing things. Financial things. I stayed silent. He embezzled funds. Not once. Not twice. Routinely. Company card, shell accounts, fake vendors. I started keeping records. "Why?" I asked. He gave a hollow laugh. "Because I knew he'd throw me under the bus eventually. He always does." "And Mary?" I asked. The man nodded. She helped cover for him. He used her name on multiple documents. Joint accounts. She knew what he was doing, but she had a reason to stay quiet. What reason? He leaned forward. She was cheating too. I didn't flinch. Not anymore. The part of me that could be shocked? Gone. With who? He hesitated. "Your father's lawyer." I froze. He must have seen the look on my face. "Yeah, it goes deeper than you think. Your sister didn't just take your fiancé. She was part of a setup. A long con. Family money. Trust fund restructuring. You were written out." My voice cracked low. "You're lying." He slid another envelope across the table. "Check the dates. Check the signatures. It's all there." I stared down at it. And in that moment, I realized the wedding wasn't the betrayal. That was just the surface. This? This was the real story. They didn't just ruin my engagement. They tried to erase me from my own family. And I wasn't going to let them. I didn't open the envelope until I got home. I don't know why. Maybe because I already knew what I was going to find inside. Maybe because deep down I hoped he was lying. That this was just another bitter ex-employee trying to stir the pot. But the truth doesn't wait. Inside were copies of legal documents, power of attorney, property transfers, signature authorizations I'd never seen before, but that bore my name, or rather, forged versions of it. Dated 3 years ago. They'd used my identity to restructure one of my father's trust accounts. They didn't just cut me out. They used me as a tool to make it look clean. To make it legal. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the papers, and for the first time since the wedding, I cried. Not from sadness. From something deeper. Something primal. I wasn't just betrayed. I'd been erased. Quietly. Carefully. Efficiently. And the worst part? They were almost done getting away with it. But not anymore. I spent the next 3 days doing what I do best, digging. Quietly. Relentlessly. I contacted a friend who worked in estate law, someone I trusted. I didn't tell her everything at first. Just enough. She agreed to look into the documents and verify if what I had was real. It was. She called me the next evening. Emma, she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but they moved nearly $600,000 from a liquid asset account that was supposed to be protected under your portion of your father's trust. Is that criminal? She paused. It can be, depending on how they justified it. But if your signature was forged and you can prove that, it's more than fraud. It's felony level. My hands were cold. And what about Mary? There was silence on the other end. She knew. She's listed as a witness on one of the transfers. Of course she was. She wasn't just complicit. She was in it. I hung up the phone and stared out the window. The city lights blinked like warning signs. My sister. My ex-fiancé. My family's lawyer. All of them tied together by something darker than jealousy or betrayal. This wasn't just a revenge story anymore. This was a takedown. So I made a new plan. I wasn't going to expose them in a speech. This time, I would do it where it hurt them most, in court. But first, I had to gather everything. And I had to do it without tipping them off. I went back to the man who gave me the flash drive. His name was Marcus, and asked him if he was willing to testify. He hesitated at first. Said he had a family, a mortgage, a job he couldn't afford to lose. But when I showed him what they'd done to me and how easily they could do it to him, he agreed. We started working together. Quiet meetings, hidden calls, a timeline, a paper trail. One night, I returned home to find an envelope taped to my door. No name, no handwriting. Just one printed sentence on a sheet of white paper. If you keep digging, you won't like what you find. I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I folded it in half, placed it in a plastic sleeve, and filed it under the growing folder labeled evidence. They were getting nervous. Good, because I was just getting started. I didn't sleep much after finding that note on my door. It didn't scare me the way they wanted it to. It confirmed something far more valuable. They knew I was close. Close to pulling the curtain back. Close to exposing what they'd been hiding for years. And now they were afraid. The next morning, I filed a formal complaint with the state attorney's office. I sent them the forged documents, the statements from my friend in estate law, and copies of every file Marcus had given me. It was all there. The manipulated trust fund, the fake vendor accounts, the shell companies. All of it linked to Dave and Mary. I didn't stop there. I contacted the bank holding the original trust. Asked for a certified signature comparison. I knew they'd have mine on file from when I was 19. They did. And it didn't match the ones used in the transfers. The case had legs now. By the end of the week, I received an official notice. The state had opened an inquiry. They wanted to interview me. Interview Marcus. Interview anyone who had seen those signatures. I was ready. But what I didn't expect was who showed up first. Mary. She came to my apartment unannounced, standing outside my building like a ghost I thought I'd already buried. When I opened the door, she didn't say anything. Not at first. Then, her voice shaky but bitter. You really couldn't just let it go, could you? I looked at her. Calm. Measured. You stole my fiancé, my inheritance, and my name. What exactly did you expect me to do, Mary? Send a thank you card. Her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Fear. This is going to destroy our family, she said. Everything will fall apart. I stared at her for a moment. And then I said something I'd waited 10 years to say. It already did. You just didn't notice. She stepped closer, her voice low. Dad doesn't know. If he finds out, it'll kill him. I held her gaze. Then you should have thought about that before you signed your name next to mine. She tried again, one last desperate swing. I didn't want it to go this far. I smiled. But it wasn't kind. It didn't go too far, Mary. It went exactly where you let it. And then I closed the door. I watched her through the peephole as she stood there, motionless, before walking away. She knew it was over. But what none of us knew then, what none of us could know, was that the trial wouldn't just reveal what Mary and Dave did. It would uncover something even worse. Because buried in those financial records, beneath the layers of deception and greed, was a final transfer signed by someone I hadn't even suspected. Someone who had been smiling in every photo, hugging me at every holiday, telling me I was still part of the family. My mother. And that discovery? That was the real beginning of the end. I didn't believe it at first. I thought maybe it was a clerical error. A duplicate name. A mistake in the filing system. But it wasn't. The final transfer, $150,000, moved out of the remaining trust, was authorized by a joint signature. One I didn't recognize and one I knew by heart. My mother. The handwriting was hers. Slanted, delicate cursive. She used the same looping M when she wrote Merry Christmas on every card. The same graceful tail at the end of her name. There was no mistaking it. She was part of it. For a full hour, I sat in my apartment, holding the document in my hands, as the weight of what it meant settled on me like a concrete blanket. She'd looked me in the eye for years. Told me to move on. Told me it's better this way. Told me Mary just needed the support more. That money isn't everything. But it was never about money. It was about control. About keeping me quiet. Keeping me small. Keeping the illusion of a perfect family wrapped tightly like a bough, even as it rotted underneath. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just made a call. To the assistant district attorney. 2 days later, I sat across from her in a gray conference room, fluorescent lights buzzing above us, the sound of a digital recorder ticking quietly on the table. I gave my full statement. Every document. Every lie. Every name. When I said the last one, Elaine Foster, my mother, I watched the ADA's eyebrow twitch slightly. Then she nodded, clicked her pen, and kept writing. Afterward, she looked at me and said, "We're opening a formal investigation. This won't be fast, and it won't be pretty. Are you sure you're ready for that?" I didn't blink. I was born for this. 2 weeks later, subpoenas were issued. Dave was the first to respond, through his lawyer, of course. Mary followed, reluctantly, after trying to claim the documents were stolen and out of context. But my mother? She didn't answer at all. Not until the court date was scheduled. The courtroom wasn't grand. Just another government building with scuffed tile and flickering lights. But to me, it felt like a cathedral. A place where truth might finally echo louder than lies. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, wearing a plain black suit, hair tied back, face unreadable. Dave sat across from me, pale and twitching. Mary refused to look in my direction. And my mother, she arrived late. Slipped in through the side door like a stranger. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She didn't even sit near me. The hearing began. The lawyers spoke. Exhibits were presented. My evidence, my statements, Marcus's testimony, all of it laid bare. Every number, every signature, every betrayal. At one point, Mary started to cry. The judge didn't blink. When they called my mother to the stand, something inside me went still, like time had paused just for that moment. She walked slowly, sat down, swore in, and then she looked at me, not with love, not with regret, but with fear. For the first time in my life, I realized something. She had never believed I would fight back. Not me. Not the quiet one. Not the daughter who always said okay and nodded through disappointment. But here I was, not just fighting, winning. My mother sat on the witness stand like she didn't recognize the air in the room. She clutched her purse on her lap with both hands, knuckles pale, lips tight. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't speak. That maybe the weight of everything had finally silenced her. But she spoke, and every word carved deeper than the last. "I didn't know the full extent of what they were doing," she said. The prosecutor tilted her head. "Mrs. Foster, your name appears on 2 financial transfers tied to misappropriated trust funds. Are you saying you signed them unknowingly?" My mother hesitated. Too long. I thought it was just a state restructuring. Dave told me it would simplify things. You trusted your daughter's fiancé with 6-figure financial decisions involving her inheritance? A pause. He was practically family. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Practically family. That was the phrase she always used. For Dave. For Mary. For anyone but me. The courtroom was silent. Then the prosecutor pressed further. Were you aware that Emma had not consented to these transfers? My mother blinked. Slowly. She didn't need it the way Mary did. A ripple moved through the gallery. The prosecutor paused. You believed your older daughter didn't need her own inheritance? She had her independence, my mother answered, voice quieter now. She was always distant. Strong-willed. Mary, she needed support. That was it. The moment everything cracked open. It wasn't just fraud. It was favoritism, weaponized. It wasn't about need. It was about control. The roles she assigned us as children, Mary the fragile one, the baby, me, the responsible one, the afterthought, she never let go of them. I wasn't the daughter she protected. I was the one she expected to survive anything, even betrayal. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Foster, did you knowingly authorize these financial transactions, aware that they excluded your other daughter from her legal share? Silence. Then, finally, yes. No excuses. No further explanation. Just one word. And in that word, 20 years of buried resentment suddenly made sense. I felt the sting behind my eyes. I didn't let it fall. Not here. Not in front of them. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Your Honor, the plaintiff rests. The judge nodded. We will reconvene next week for closing arguments. This court is adjourned for the day. The gavel struck once, and the courtroom slowly began to empty. I didn't move. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the place where my mother had just confessed to erasing me on record, under oath. Mary walked past me without a word. Dave kept his head down, whispering frantically to his attorney. And my mother? She stopped at the door, looked back. Our eyes met. And all she said was, "You weren't supposed to do this." I stood up, walked toward her, and said the truth I had waited a decade to say. You never really knew me. And I walked out. But the story wasn't over. Because what came next wasn't legal. It was personal. And it would change our family forever. The courthouse was behind me, but the weight of it followed. That night, I sat alone in my apartment with the lights off, my phone silenced, and the envelope of court documents still sitting unopened on my kitchen table. Everything I had wanted was happening. The truth was out. The people who betrayed me exposed. On record. Under oath. And facing consequences. But all I felt was hollow. I thought revenge would feel like relief. But it didn't. Because revenge isn't justice. It's only the mirror you hold up to the pain. And when the echo fades, you're still left with the silence. I walked to the window and looked out over the city, watching headlights crawl through the streets like slow-moving stars. Somewhere out there, Mary was sitting in her perfectly decorated house, now stripped of its illusion. Dave was probably spiraling. His business partner had already dropped him, and from what Marcus said, 2 more employees had come forward. My mother, I imagined, was sitting in the dark too. But her silence, she earned it. The next morning, my attorney called. They want to settle, she said. Settle, I repeated. Full financial restitution. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. No trial, no jury. No prison time, unless you push for criminal prosecution. They're hoping you won't. I was quiet. You have all the leverage, Emma. It's your call. I sat with that for a long time. They wanted out. They wanted to write a check and disappear. Bury the story. Move on. But the money wasn't the point anymore. It never was. This wasn't about inheritance. This was about identity. About voice. About finally being seen by people who had spent their entire lives pretending I didn't matter. And they couldn't fix that with a wire transfer. So I said no. I told her we'd go to court. Let it all come out. Let the world hear exactly what they did. And then, that night, something happened I didn't expect. There was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Mary standing there. Alone. No makeup. No carefully chosen outfit. Just jeans, a sweatshirt, and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed in days. I know you don't want to see me, she said. I didn't answer. I just need 5 minutes. That's all. I stepped aside. She walked in and stood in the center of the room like she didn't know what to do with her hands. You're going to win, she said. I nodded once. I deserve it, she added. But I need you to know something. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a photograph. It was old, creases in the corners, faded ink on the back. It was us, me and her, aged maybe 6 and 4, sitting under the big oak tree in our childhood backyard, popsicles melting down our hands. Laughing. "I've kept this in my wallet for years," she said. "I don't even know why. Maybe to remind myself that before all this, we were still sisters." I looked at the photo, then at her. "You stopped being my sister the day you let him lie about me." "I know," she said. "And I'll regret it for the rest of my life." She handed me the photo. Then she turned to leave. At the door, she stopped. "Emma, you don't have to forgive me. But please don't let her rewrite the story again. Don't let Mom disappear behind another lie." And then she was gone. I stared at that photo for a long time. And for the first time, I cried. Not from rage, but from mourning. Because before the betrayal, there had been something real. Something pure. And now it was gone. Forever. The final hearing was scheduled for Friday. It was the kind of cold, gray morning that felt symbolic, like even the sky was holding its breath. I arrived early, walked through security, and sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, waiting. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't afraid. I was done feeling small. Mary arrived first. She nodded at me, cautiously, and sat across the room. No makeup, no heels, just a quiet presence, like someone walking through the ashes of what they'd burned. Dave walked in next. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. He looked like a man already sentenced by his own reflection. And then, my mother. She walked in last, alone. Dressed in gray. Face unreadable. She didn't glance toward me. Not once. Not even when she passed within feet of where I sat. It didn't matter. I didn't need her recognition anymore. When the judge entered, we stood. What followed wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No final twist. Just the quiet, clinical conclusion of what had once been a family. The judge reviewed the documents, the forensic reports, the testimonies, and then she spoke. "This court finds that significant financial misconduct occurred under the names of David Whitman, Mary Foster, and Elaine Foster, resulting in the illegal transfer of over $700,000 from the plaintiff's share of the Foster Trust." She looked at me. "Mrs. Foster, the court acknowledges the extensive effort you undertook to uncover and document this wrongdoing. Your evidence was clear, thorough, and compelling." Then she turned back to them. "All 3 defendants are hereby ordered to repay the full amount in restitution, plus damages, and to issue a formal, written acknowledgement of misconduct to be entered into public record." She paused. "In addition, due to the forged documents and the conspiracy involved, the court is referring this matter to the State Criminal Division for further investigation." Dave's lawyer whispered something. Mary lowered her head. My mother sat still. No emotion. No denial. No apology. Just silence. Afterward, as people began to leave the courtroom, my attorney turned to me. "We won." I nodded. But I wasn't smiling, because this wasn't victory. This was closure. I stepped outside into the morning light. The sky had cleared. A pale sun broke through the clouds, warming the cold steps beneath my feet. Reporters were already waiting near the sidewalk. One of them called my name. I kept walking. I wasn't here for headlines. I was here to end something. And I had. Later that evening, I stood in my apartment, holding the written statement the court had ordered them to sign. It was short. One page. Black ink on cream paper. We, the undersigned, acknowledge and admit to knowingly excluding Emma Foster from her legal share of the Foster Family Trust, falsifying documentation, and engaging in deliberate financial deception. 3 signatures. Mary Foster. David Whitman. Elaine Foster. I stared at my mother's name the longest. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt release. Because now it wasn't just my word against theirs. It was truth on record. They could no longer hide behind smiles, behind wealth, behind the illusion of a perfect family. They were seen. And I was no longer invisible. It's been 6 months. 6 months since the courtroom. 6 months since I watched the people who raised me and the man I once planned to marry answer for what they did. A lot has changed. The money was returned. Every last dollar. Not that it mattered anymore. I used a portion of it to donate to a legal fund for young women fighting family-based financial abuse. That part felt right. The rest? I let it sit. Some wounds aren't healed by compensation. Some just stop bleeding long enough to scar. Mary moved out of state. I don't know where. She sent me a letter once. Not to ask forgiveness, she didn't dare. Just to say she was sorry she let herself become someone she no longer recognized. I haven't written back. Dave filed for bankruptcy. The company collapsed under the weight of everything I exposed. Last I heard, he was working a job that paid hourly. A far cry from the champagne arrogance he used to wear like a suit. I feel nothing for him now. Not hate. Not pity. Nothing at all. As for my mother, she lives in the same house. The one with the roses she used to prune every spring. I hear she rarely answers the phone. That people don't visit much. I haven't seen her since the final hearing, but some nights I wonder what she tells herself when she looks in the mirror, and whether she finally sees me standing behind her. Not angry, not broken, just standing, existing, living. I've started writing again. It used to be something I did when I was younger, before everything went silent inside me. These days, I sit at my kitchen table with the window open, letting the breeze remind me that the world is still moving. I wrote our story down. Every word. Not for revenge. Not for sympathy. For truth. Because truth doesn't care how pretty your house is. It doesn't care how long your lies have been rehearsed. It just waits. And when it's finally spoken aloud, it echoes louder than anything else. I still don't know if I believe in healing, but I do believe in rebuilding. And I'm doing that now. One day at a time. One quiet morning after another. And if someone out there hears this story, someone sitting in the shadow of a perfect family, being told to smile and stay quiet, I want you to know. You're not alone. Your voice matters. And the moment you decide to speak is the moment everything starts to change.